Hello folks, this is Mike and I'm doing a review of the manga, or the manhwa, Bloody Sweet by Narae Lee. Published by Tappytoon in print, and this is actually an exclusive for their Kickstarter supporters. That's how I got it. I actually worked for the company that did Tappytoon's marketing and promotion when this came out, and that's how I got involved in it and how it ended up in my collection. And now I'm going to share a bit of it with you. The first thing is that it's super impressive that this entire book is not only so well drawn and consistent and a definite manga or manhwa, which is Korean. I want to say yes, it's Korean manga, is known as manhwa. Anyway, you can obviously tell there's a supernatural theme to this, and I'll explain that in a second, but just the size of this volume and the fact that it's in full color and most other manga is black and white, the amount of work it would take to do this is impressive in itself. It's a thick book. Like, it's, let's see, are there page numbers? Doesn't look like there is. Oh yeah, so there's 602, there's a few pages after that, so it's probably about 606 pages, 604, okay, yeah, so 604. And you can see on the cover, there's a little bit of creasing from the lamination on the cover, just the style of the lamination, the way the printing was done. I think it's pretty much impossible to not end up with that creasing if you actually read the book. So this was an exclusive for Kickstarter supporters, and I think it's pretty rare because of that. And there's a little timeline of some of Narae's work. Yeah, it is Korean. I was sure I remembered that correctly. Or it was originally Korean with Tappytoon, but this is an English version. And the opening page does a great summary with very minimal graphics. So to summarize, this is a story about my truly messed up life and the truly messed up man who found me just then. So this is a story about a girl who is in school in what I assume to be Korea. And there's a lot about Korean culture in here too, about witchcraft and superstitious beliefs and belief in witches. And it just so happens that the main character's mother is a witch that performs curses or rituals for payment. Excuse me there. And she's a regular schoolgirl, but she is about to discover that since she is maturing, that she is going to start developing supernatural abilities like her mother. And after being dared by some kids that she goes to school with and abandoned, she comes across a vampire. And it turns out in this world, the world of Bloody Sweet, vampires and witches are naturally drawn to each other. And if they use each other's power or magic, or in the case of the vampire, if he drinks from her, they become eternally bonded with an invisible physical bond, which is represented by this, looks like a string of blood. And so in the comic, they use that to signify the bond between them, even though my understanding from reading it and the dialogue is that it's technically an invisible thing. And this is just a visual representation of essentially a leash going to his collar connected to her arm. And they become embroiled in a codependent friendship, let's say, and it becomes a little toxic, and there seems to be a lot of stuff that the vampire is hiding from her. But there's also a lot of romantic undertones, and he always seems to be constantly pressuring her for physical contact and blood, and I feel like there's a lot of allegory there with teenage couples and with the male generally being in a demanding position or pressuring the female for intimacy. So we go through the daily life and the girls that torment her and bully her as she's developing her powers and trying to figure out how to cope with this vampire in her life, especially when she also has a crush on another boy from school. And this is really hard to turn one-handed and control. So she's also slightly stigmatized by some of the wealthier students from her school because of her mother's station in life, being known as someone who practices magic rituals. So I won't ruin the whole thing for you. I'm not going to spoil all of it. What I told you was essentially the opening chapter, but there's a lot to enjoy here, and the artwork is beautiful and solid lines. I love how it's a spoof of Adidas. It's Adidas. But whenever she switches to cutscenes, she uses a very cartoony chibi style that's even more kind of cartoony than regular manga. And she switches between styles and does both of them very well. And I really like this character. Really big eyes, really expressive face. I love how, I know I struggle with it, but experienced manga artists seem to be able to do these super expressive faces with very minimal visual detail. There's not much to that mouth or that nose, and the eyes aren't really that detailed. They're just two big circles and a couple lines, but she does a great job of expression like that. That's, I would say, one of her strong suits. Her face is really emote. You can tell, you know, she's nervous here and anxious, and that's more nervous, that's more anxious, but, you know, and then there's like a slight nervous laugh, relief. Like, a great artist when it comes to expression and body shape, where you see her like this and him kind of compliment, almost framing her while he's got this arm around her so that they're connected. And you know, a little bit of Superman, what is it, 2 or 3, where he takes Lois for a flight. I think it's 3, I could be wrong though. And yeah, that's a photo. And I want to point out, that's way more common in Asian influenced comics. And you see it sometimes in American comics, but there are a lot of people who really frown on it and who really look down their nose at someone if they do a panel with a photo. I think that's silly. I think it's a great use. And I mean, if you've got the photo, sure, they could have drawn it from reference or whatnot, but especially in color, it's really hard to capture the glow. I mean, if you prefer to draw it, that's fine. And if you would draw it that way, that's fine too. But I also don't think that it's bad for you to do this. And they made it work because there's just a small illustration. You're not mixing too much. It's not jarring. And then we return back to the fully illustrated world with the close-up. So I think you should be open to different techniques. Here we've done it again on this page. This is almost the same panel as the previous page. And in this one, we've got a different angle. Or I think it's actually this shot zoomed in and turned a little bit, but they do it successfully in that it looks like a different shot altogether. So again, the artist deserves a lot of credit for that. Very, very good use of photographic backgrounds and implementation in this. And it's not super frequent, but where it is used, it's very well done. This one you can tell is one that's been blurred, but again, very well done. This is a very interesting story. I remember being very invested in it myself, not just because I was helping to promote it, but because it really is well written, and I believe that the author really deserves a lot of props. As you can see, our main character starts to become a bit more of a badass as the story progresses, and I don't want to ruin too much for you, so I won't. Other than to say it's really worth a read. Now, you can probably find this and newer stuff on Tappytoon, but if you'd like to hold it in your hands and read it, you can get this book in my eBay store, if it's still there by the time this gets posted. So it is available in my eBay store right now. And maybe you find the same book with a better deal. Right now, I don't believe anyone else has it on eBay. That doesn't mean that they won't. So you might just find it somewhere else too. And as far as I know, if they're doing another promotion or a new volume, you might be able to get it as a bonus on Kickstarter. But whether you want to actually get it or not, if you're that interested, doesn't matter. What matters is that this is a really good book, and it is available on my eBay page as well as many other things. And the way to find my eBay page is to check the link in the description for mikegagno.ca. That'll take you to a website where you can see books I've written and links to my eBay page where I sell premium collectibles from my personal collection. So this is one of them. And I do have a sale every once in a while. By the time this is posted, I'm not even sure what sale will be going on, but it is a really good book. Bloody Sweet by Narae Lee. Check it out. Look for it. Look for it at your local comic shop. Look for it online. Look for it at Tappytoon if you prefer to read digitally. But big props to the creator of this, Narae Lee. I am just blown away by the massive amount of work in this volume, and I think that the creator really deserves a lot of props, so big props to her. Anyway, as I mentioned, if you like more of this, if you want to see more of these videos, you know how to follow channels if you want to. Either way, if you'd like more of what I do and want to learn more about that, go to mikegagno.ca, description and link in the description, I should say. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.